Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and I welcome you to this video in which I am going to discuss models of public policy. Starting with the preview of this lecture, public policy is an appropriate topic because it is concerned with the outcomes of the political process. The core purpose of the government is to manage and address the needs of the society and try to make solution of the public problems. The approaches that governments adopt and the actions they take are avoid to address those needs collectively constitute their policies and are the product of the political processes. Where political science examines the organization and structure of the political factory, policy analysis looks at how policy is formed, at the influence on policy and at the results of different policy options. In this presentation, we begin with a review of three models of the policy process, that is, the rational model, the incremental model, and the garbage can model. The first provides an idealistic baseline, while the second and third are more reflective of reality, but it is debatable in which proportions. The lecture then goes on to look at the related phenomena of policy diffusion and policy convergence. So, in analyzing the manner in which policy is made, scholars have developed three different types of policy models. The rational model, which is associated with the name of Herbert Simon. The incremental model was developed by Charles Lindblom, and the garbage can model, so named by Michael Cohen. The rational model seeks to elaborate what would be involved in rational policy making without assuming that its conclusions are reflected in what actually happens. The incremental model views policy as a compromise between actors with ill-defined or even contradictory goals and can be seen either as an account of how politics ought to proceed or as a description of how policy is made. The garbage can model is concerned with highlighting the many limitations of the policy making process within many organizations, looking only at what is, not what ought to be. Three models of policy making are as follows. The first column shows types of models, the second column shows goals and means, the third column shows optimum policy outcome or output, fourth column shows analysis of the model, and the fifth column shows guidance. So as far as a rational model of policy is concerned, its goals are set before means, and policies will achieve explicit goals. And regarding its analysis, comprehensive all effects of all options are addressed, and guidance is achieved through theory. The second type of policy model, that is incremental model of policy making, goals and means are considered together. Policies will be agreed by all main actors, and analysis is selective. The goal is acceptable policy, not the best policy. Comparison with similar problems. Regarding model of policy making, that is garbage can model, goals are discovered through actions taken by organization and are not specified separately. Some problems are partly addressed some of the time. A little analysis is little the organization acts rather than decides. Trial and error plus some memory of recent experience is regarding guidance of this type of model. Let us discuss the rational model in a bit more detail. Let us suppose you are the Secretary of Education and your key policy goal is an improvement in student performance. If you opt for the rational model, then you would first ensure that you had a complete and accurate set of data on performance levels. Then set your goals. For example, a 10% increase in the number of students going to the university within 5 years. And then you would list and consider the most efficient means of achieving those goals. You might choose to improve secondary teaching, expand the size or the number of the universities, deepen support for students from disadvantaged backgrounds, increase the number of university staff, improve facilities, or some combination of these approaches. Your approach focuses on efficiency and demands that policymakers rank all their values, develop specific options, check all the results of choosing each option against each value, and select the option that achieves the most values. This is, of course, an unrealistic counsel of perfection because it requires policymakers to foresee the unforeseeable and measure the unmeasurable. So, the rational model offers a theoretical yardstick rather than a practical guide. Even so, techniques as cost-benefit analysis have been developed in an attempt to implement aspects of the rational model, and the results of such analysis can at least discourage policy making driven solely by political appeal. However, cost-benefit analysis and with it the rational model of policy formulation also has weaknesses. It underplays soft factors such as fairness and the quality of life. It calculates the net distribution of costs and benefits but ignores their distribution across social groups. It is cumbersome, expensive, and time consuming. It does not automatically incorporate estimates of the likelihood that claimed benefits will be achieved. There is often no agreement on what constitutes a cost and what constitutes a benefit. Take, for example, the problem of air pollution. We know it exists particularly in and around large urban areas. We know its sources, we have a good idea of how to control and prevent it, and we have a good idea of its potential impact on human life. There is little question that it causes health problems and can reduce overall life expectancy. However, it affects people differently because some have a greater capacity than others to live and function in a polluted environment. The precise links between pollution and illness or death are often unclear. We cannot be sure how much healthcare costs are impacted by higher levels of pollution, and it is hard to place a value on a human life or on extending life expectancy. It is also hard to calculate the relative cost and benefits of economic development that takes pollution control into account versus such development that doesn't. The result of difficulties is that in the real political world, any conclusions from cost-benefit analysis may be overridden by broader, less clear-cut, but more important considerations. The second type of public policy model is the incremental model, where the rational model starts with goals and incremental model starts with interests. Taking again the example of improved educational performance, an education secretary proceeding incrementally would consult with the various stakeholders, including teachers' unions, university administrations, and educational researchers. A consensus acceptable to all interests might emerge on how extra resources should be generated and allocated. The long-term goals might not be measured or even specified, but we would assume that a policy acceptable to all is unlikely to be disastrous. Such an approach is policy making by evolution, not revolution. An increment is literally a small increase in an existing sequence. The incremental model was developed by Lindblom as part of a reaction against the rational model. Lindblom argued that policy is continuously remade in a series of minor adjustments to the existing direction in a process that he described as the science of muddling through. What matters here is that those involved should agree on policies, not objectives. Agreement can be reached on the desirability of following a particular course even when objectives differ. Hence, policy emerges from rather than proceeds negotiation with interest groups. This approach may not lead to achieving grand objectives, but by taking one step at a time, at least avoids making huge mistakes. Yet, the model also reveals its limits in situations that can only be remedied by strategic action. As Lindblom himself came to recognize, incremental policy making deals with existing problems rather than with avoiding future difficulties. It is politically safe but unadventurous, remedial rather than innovative. It is pluralistic policy making for normal times. The third type of policy model is that of the garbage can model. To understand the title of this model, we return to our example. How would the garbage can model interpret policy making to improve educational performance? The answer is that it would doubt the significance of such clear objectives. It would suggest that within the government's education department, separate divisions and individuals engage in their own routine work, interacting through assorted committees whose composition varies over time. Static enrollments may be a concern of university administrators, and solutions may be available elsewhere in the organization, perhaps in the form of people committed to online learning or an expansion of financial aid. But whether participants with a solution encounter those with a problem and in a way that generates a successful resolution is hit and miss and unpredictable and fluctuating as the arrangements of different types of garbage in a rubbish bin. This model can be difficult to grasp, a fact that shows how deeply our minds try to impose rationality on the policy process. Large decentralized public organizations such as universities perhaps provide the best illustrations. On most university campuses, decisions emerge from committees which operate largely independently. The energy saving group may not know what instrument can achieve its goals, while the engineering faculty, fully informed about appropriate devices, may not know that the green committees exists. The committee on standards may want to raise overall admissions qualifications, while the equal opportunity group may be more interested in encouraging applications from minorities. Even within a single group, the position adopted may depend on which people happen to attend a meeting. Clearly, the garbage can model suggests that real policy making is far removed from the rigors of rationality. Even on key issues, strong, sustained leadership is needed to impose a coherent response by government as a whole. Many presidents and prime ministers advocate giant up government, but few succeed in vanquishing the garbage can. Often, rationality is a glass paint applied to policy after it is agreed. Glass paint is paint that forms a shiny surface when it dries. Elite theory approach. This is another type of policy model. Important proponents of this approach include Pareto, Mosca, and Michels. Based on the assumption that public policies are made by and for the small elite section of the society, elites can be governing elite who directly influence the policy making process, and the non-governing elite who play an indirect but an important role. Society is divided into the few who have power and many who do not. Only a small number of people allocate values for the whole society. Policies flows downward from the elite to the masses and not vice versa. The movement of non-elite to elite position is usually very slow and complex. Public policies does not reflect the demands of the masses but rather the prevailing value of the elite. Then there is public choice theory. This approach views public policy as a collective decision making by self-interested individuals. Policymakers are viewed as individuals who come together in politics for their own mutual benefits, and by government among themselves so that they can enhance their own well-being. Therefore, policy makers pursue their self-interest in politics, but even with selfish motives that can mutually benefit through collective decision making. This model uses economic analysis to analyze public policy making. This model assumes that all political actors, voters, taxpayers, bureaucrats seek to maximize their personal interest in politics as investors do in the marketplace. Policy diffusion and convergence. Once there were no speed limits, no seat belts, no nutritional labels, no restrictions on advertising cigarettes, no gender quotas for party candidates, and on state subsidies for political parties. Now there are. Most democracies have introduced broadly similar policies in these and many other areas and often at similar time. So how did they move in tandem from then to now? The answer lies in a combination of policy diffusion and policy convergence. The former describes, that is, the policy diffusion describes the phenomenon of policy programs spreading from one country to another, though with less emphasis on deliberate emulation that is suggested by related terms such as policy transfer, policy learning, or lesson drawing. The second part, that is policy convergence, refers to a tendency for policies to become more similar across countries, a phenomenon which can occur without explicit diffusion if different countries just respond to common problems in a similar way. Both diffusion and convergence usually address the comparative dimension in public policy analysis. Concluding remarks. The preceding discussion delves into various models and approaches to get a better understanding of the public policy process. Each approach provides a separate focus on political life, and each helps us to understand different aspects of policy making. Thus, it is not possible to arrive at a conclusion regarding the most satisfactory approach to understand public policy. It would be better to use them as organizing concepts that seems useful for the satisfactory analysis and explanation of public policy. Each of the approach can contribute something to our understanding of public policy. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for watching this video. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, kindly do subscribe, and don't forget to click on the bell icon so that you can get notification about my videos that I'll upload for you very soon. Thanks for watching, and see you in another video. Kindly share various videos of this channel in various WhatsApp groups with your friends, colleagues, and students. Thanks for watching.